Most families believe two incomes automatically mean security, stability, and freedom from financial stress in modern American life. Yet many dual income households quietly feel more anxious, more fragile, and more exhausted than families living on one paycheck. If that contradiction feels familiar, this conversation is not here to judge you, fix you, or sell quick financial miracles. Before we go deeper, gently tap. Like if honest money conversations help you feel calmer and less alone. Share this video with someone you care about, not to lecture them, but to help them feel understood and supported. And if you value realistic financial thinking without hype or shame, consider subscribing for future conversations like this. My name is Max, and I study how everyday Americans experience money emotionally, not just how numbers look on spreadsheets. I am not here to tell you to hustle harder, earn more, or feel guilty for wanting stability. I am here to explain why many two-income households feel poorer, even while doing everything society told them was responsible. The idea that two incomes guarantee safety sounds logical, comforting, and almost impossible to question. After all, more money should mean more margin, more flexibility, and fewer financial emergencies, at least on paper. But real life does not happen on paper. It happens inside systems built around fixed costs and constant pressure. When both adults must work full-time, life quietly restructures itself around that requirement without asking permission. Housing choices change, childcare becomes mandatory, commuting grows longer, and daily flexibility slowly disappears. None of these changes feel dangerous alone, but together they form something many people never see coming. That something is called the two-income trap, and it has nothing to do with laziness or poor discipline. It is a structural problem that punishes families for doing exactly what modern economics encourage them to do. To understand this trap clearly, we need to step back and look at how costs changed faster than incomes. This story is not about blaming choices, but about recognizing hidden risks most people were never warned about. Once you see the trap clearly, your relationship with income, security, and freedom starts to shift permanently. For decades, American families were told that adding a second income was the safest path toward stability and progress. That advice made sense in a world where housing, healthcare, and education rose slowly and predictably over time. Back then, one stable income could cover most essentials, while a second income created savings and breathing room. But the economic environment quietly shifted, while the advice stayed frozen in an outdated version of reality. Today, fixed costs consume a much larger share of household income before families even think about saving. Housing alone now absorbs a level of income that previous generations would have considered dangerously high. When both adults work, families often stretch further on housing, assuming dual income will always be there. That decision feels reasonable because lenders, agents, and calculators all encourage using maximum combined income. Childcare then becomes non-optional, not as a luxury, but as a prerequisite for keeping both incomes. In many states, full-time childcare rivals or exceeds a second mortgage payment every single month. Healthcare costs add another layer of pressure, especially when employer coverage ties security directly to employment. Suddenly, losing one job does not reduce income slightly, it threatens the entire structure holding life together. The household does not simply earn less, it risks losing housing, childcare access, and health insurance simultaneously. This is why two-income households often feel fragile, even when their salaries look impressive on paper. The margin for error shrinks as commitments expand, creating constant low-level stress beneath daily routines. Vacations, rest, and flexibility slowly disappear, replaced by rigid schedules built around work survival. Over time, families adapt to this pressure so completely that stress starts to feel normal and unavoidable. Many people assume this tension means they are failing financially when the system itself is the problem. The two-income trap thrives on silence, comparison, and the belief that everyone else is handling it better. Once we expose the mechanics behind this trap, shame fades and clarity finally begins to replace confusion. To really understand this trap, we need to separate income from security, because they are not the same thing. Income tells you how much money enters your life, but security depends on how fragile your system becomes. Two incomes often increase income while quietly decreasing flexibility, resilience, and margin for unexpected events. When both adults must work continuously, even small disruptions ripple through every part of daily life. A sick child, a broken car, or burnout suddenly becomes a logistical and financial crisis. There is no slack left in the system because every hour and dollar is already allocated. This constant tightness trains the nervous system to stay alert, even when nothing is actively wrong. Over time, families confuse this chronic tension with responsibility, maturity, and doing life correctly. Society often praises this pressure as ambition, ignoring the long-term emotional and financial costs. The two-income trap is powerful because it disguises vulnerability as success and progress. From the outside, these households look stable, busy, and upwardly mobile. From the inside, many feel trapped, exhausted, and afraid to slow down even briefly. One missed paycheck can trigger cascading consequences that take months or years to fully recover from. This fear quietly shapes decisions around jobs, parenting, health, and even personal identity. People stay in roles they dislike because the system cannot tolerate even temporary income disruption. This is not a failure of willpower, discipline, or intelligence. It is the predictable outcome of building life around maximum income instead of sustainable stability. Understanding this difference is the first step toward reducing stress without blaming yourself or others. Awareness alone does not fix everything, but it restores perspective and self-trust. From here, we can examine why higher income sometimes increases risk instead of reducing it. Higher income encourages higher commitments because banks, schools, and markets price life around maximum earning capacity rather than flexibility. Families rarely notice this shift because each upgrade feels incremental, reasonable, and socially validated at the time by peers. A slightly better neighborhood, safer schools, newer cars, and longer commutes slowly become non-negotiable necessities for modern dual-income families. Each choice locks in higher fixed costs that cannot adjust downward when life inevitably changes unexpectedly or painfully. When income rises first, spending follows automatically, but resilience rarely grows at the same pace inside households today. This creates a paradox where earning more money actually increases dependence on continuous, uninterrupted employment for survival purposes. One layoff, illness, or family emergency suddenly exposes how thin the margin truly is for many households today. Dual income systems often assume perfect health, perfect schedules, and perfect stability that real life never provides consistently. Because both incomes are required, there is no backup plan when one pillar weakens unexpectedly, financially, or emotionally. Instead of redundancy, two incomes often create a single fragile system, disguised as diversification within households today nationwide. This is why higher salaries do not always translate into feeling safe, calm, or in control long term. Security comes from optionality, slack, and the ability to absorb shocks without immediate panic or cascading consequences later. Many two-income households unknowingly trade that optionality away in exchange for higher monthly numbers on spreadsheets alone. The danger is not spending itself, but spending that assumes nothing will ever go wrong financially, medically, or emotionally. Real stability plans for disruption, not perfection, and modern life delivers disruption regularly to ordinary families everywhere today. Yet our financial culture rarely rewards caution, margins, or restraint when income increases during career growth phases especially. Instead, success is measured by visible upgrades that signal progress to employers, neighbors, and social circles online and offline. This social pressure reinforces the trap, making it emotionally harder to downshift or question assumptions about money, work, and success. Over time, families internalize these expectations, mistaking constant strain for normal adult responsibility within American culture today widely. Understanding this context matters because it reframes financial stress as systemic rather than personal failure for many households nationwide. Another hidden cost of two incomes is time, which becomes scarce, expensive, and tightly scheduled around work demands. When both adults work full-time, every non-work task must be outsourced, rushed, or postponed indefinitely. Cooking, cleaning, errands, and childcare often transform from shared life activities into paid services or stress sources. These time costs rarely appear in budgets, yet they drain energy, patience, and emotional capacity over years. Families pay not only with money, but with exhaustion, missed moments, and reduced recovery time. The system begins rewarding constant motion while quietly penalizing rest, flexibility, and human limits. Over time, burnout becomes normalized, framed as ambition rather than a warning sign of imbalance. Parents feel guilty resting, employees fear stepping back, and everyone feels replaceable and stretched thin. This emotional pressure compounds financial risk by reducing clarity and increasing reactive decision-making. Stress narrows perspective, making short-term survival feel more urgent than long-term stability planning. In this state, households often respond to pressure by working more, not questioning the system itself. That response deepens the trap, increasing dependence on income while reducing physical and emotional resilience. Over years, families may earn more than ever while feeling less free than earlier stages of life. This is why many dual income households describe success as heavy, exhausting, and strangely fragile. The problem is not effort, intelligence, or values, but misaligned incentives shaping everyday financial choices. When success requires constant performance, even small failures feel catastrophic rather than manageable setbacks. True security allows room for mistakes, illness, rest, and recalibration without immediate financial collapse. Two incomes often remove that room, replacing it with rigid systems optimized only for perfect execution. Recognizing this pattern helps explain why anxiety persists even when income appears strong and stable externally. Next, we will examine how this trap affects relationships, identity, and long-term life satisfaction. Financial systems do not exist in isolation. They shape relationships, communication patterns, and emotional safety inside households. When both incomes are required, fear quietly enters decisions about conflict, boundaries, and long-term planning. Couples may avoid necessary conversations because financial dependency makes disagreement feel riskier than silence. One partner stepping back can feel like betrayal, even when health, burnout, or family needs demand adjustment. This dynamic creates unspoken pressure to perform constantly, both professionally and emotionally, without visible weakness. Over time, resentment can build quietly, not from lack of love, but from lack of flexibility and shared margin. Money stress often disguises itself as relationship problems, when the root cause is structural financial fragility. Parents may feel trapped between providing financially and being emotionally present for their children consistently. Children sense this tension, learning early that stability depends on constant work and suppressed needs. These lessons shape future beliefs about success, worth, and what adulthood is supposed to feel like. As identity also becomes tightly linked to income when both earnings are necessary to keep life functioning. Losing a job then feels like losing value, purpose, and safety simultaneously. This identity pressure makes it harder to rest, change careers, or prioritize long-term health. And so many people stay stuck not because they lack options, but because the system punishes exploration severely. The two-income trap quietly converts careers into lifelines rather than tools for meaningful contribution. When work becomes survival, curiosity, creativity, and personal growth often shrink dramatically over time. This emotional narrowing reinforces the belief that there is no alternative, even when options technically exist. Understanding this helps remove shame from feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or afraid to slow down. These reactions are logical responses to risk concentration, not personal weakness or failure. With this clarity, we can finally discuss how some families avoid or reduce the trap intentionally. Avoiding the two-income trap does not mean rejecting progress, ambition, or shared responsibility within modern households. It means understanding risk before committing to costs that assume permanent, uninterrupted dual employment. Some families intentionally keep housing below what lenders approve, preserving flexibility instead of maximizing lifestyle upgrades. Others build emergency buffers large enough to survive one income loss without immediate panic or forced decisions. These choices often look conservative from the outside, but they quietly increase long-term resilience. The key difference is designing life around sustainability, not peak earning years or perfect scenarios. Families who prioritize margin gain the ability to slow down, recover, and adapt when circumstances change unexpectedly. This margin creates psychological safety, which improves decision-making under stress and uncertainty. Importantly, these families do not eliminate stress entirely, but they reduce its intensity and duration. Flexibility allows one partner to step back temporarily without collapsing the entire household system. That option alone dramatically changes how work, parenting, and health decisions feel emotionally. Rather than trapping identity inside income, flexibility restores choice and personal agency gradually over time. This approach often requires saying no to visible upgrades that society equates with success. It may involve smaller homes, fewer commitments, or slower career acceleration during certain life stages. These trade-offs can feel uncomfortable initially, especially when comparison pressure is constant. But over years, they compound into stability, confidence, and freedom from chronic financial anxiety. The goal is not minimalism or sacrifice, but alignment between income, costs, and real human limits. When alignment improves, stress decreases even if total income does not increase dramatically. This reframing helps families redefine success in ways that support health and long-term well-being. Next, we will address common objections and misunderstandings surrounding this conversation, honestly and carefully. Some listeners assume this conversation criticizes dual-income families, but that assumption completely misses the deeper structural point. The issue is never morality, effort, or values, but how modern cost structures amplify risk inside households today. Many families rely on two incomes simply to survive basic expenses within their local housing and childcare markets. This video never suggests abandoning work, ambition, or shared responsibility in an increasingly expensive economic environment today nationwide. Instead, it encourages honest awareness of risk concentration before families lock themselves into rigid, long-term commitments financially. Two incomes can function well when costs stay flexible and emergency buffers absorb disruptions without panic or chaos. Problems appear when dual income shifts from helpful support into a mandatory requirement for basic household survival today. Optionality is the difference between choice and compulsion, between confidence and constant low-grade financial fear for families. When income becomes optional, work transforms into a tool rather than a threat hanging over daily life constantly. This shift alone can reduce anxiety significantly, even if total earnings remain unchanged across many years for families. A common objection is that inflation and housing costs leave families with no meaningful alternatives today nationwide anywhere. That concern is valid, which is exactly why awareness matters before irreversible long-term financial decisions are made. Even small adjustments can lower fragility without requiring drastic sacrifices or unrealistic lifestyle changes over time for families. Awareness helps families ask better questions before upgrading homes, careers, debts, or long-term obligations that matter most. Those questions focus on resilience, not just affordability during ideal, uninterrupted, best-case scenarios for families today everywhere. Over time, this mindset reduces regret and increases confidence when navigating uncertain economic cycles with clarity and calm. The two-income trap thrives when people believe there is no alternative worth considering seriously anymore today financially. Simply seeing the trap restores mental flexibility, even before any practical changes actually occur for families under pressure. That mental shift often becomes the most immediate benefit people experience from this discussion about money and security. With this foundation established, we can reflect calmly on what true financial security really means for modern families. For most families, financial security is not about wealth, luxury, or status, but about reducing constant background fear. Security means knowing one unexpected event will not immediately threaten housing, healthcare, or basic daily stability. It means having time to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting urgently when life inevitably changes direction. Two-income systems often remove that response time by maximizing commitments around peak earning assumptions. When everything depends on everything working perfectly, even minor disruptions feel overwhelming and dangerous emotionally. True security builds slack into systems, allowing space for illness, job changes, caregiving, or recovery without collapse. Slack may look inefficient on paper, but it is incredibly efficient for human well-being over decades. Many families discover too late that efficiency optimized for income ignores emotional and physical sustainability. This realization often arrives during burnout, health scares, layoffs, or moments when flexibility suddenly becomes priceless. At that point, money alone cannot quickly buy back lost time, energy, or emotional safety. Understanding the two-income trap earlier allows families to make gentler adjustments instead of forced corrections later. These adjustments rarely require dramatic exits, but thoughtful pacing, buffers, and realistic expectations about life stages. Financial wisdom often looks boring compared to hustle culture, but boring systems tend to survive real life better. Stability grows quietly through consistency, margins, and choices aligned with human limits rather than constant optimization. This approach invites calmer decisions, healthier relationships, and a more sustainable sense of progress over time. It also reduces comparison pressure by redefining success internally, rather than through visible upgrades or income numbers. When families reclaim that definition, money becomes supportive instead of controlling daily choices and emotional states. The goal shifts from maximizing income to maximizing resilience, flexibility, and long-term well-being for everyone involved. This shift does not make life perfect, but it makes challenges feel manageable rather than threatening. With this perspective, we are ready to close by summarizing the core lesson behind the two-income trap. The core lesson behind the two-income trap is not about working less, but about understanding hidden trade-offs. Two incomes can increase comfort, but they often increase risk when costs assume permanent, uninterrupted earning forever. When families confuse income with security, they unknowingly build lives that cannot tolerate normal human disruptions. Real stability comes from margin, flexibility, and the ability to absorb shocks without immediate financial panic. This perspective shifts focus from chasing higher numbers toward building systems that support real-life unpredictability. It reminds us that money should reduce stress, not quietly multiply it through rigid commitments and expectations. If this conversation helped you see your situation with more clarity and less self-blame, that matters deeply. Consider sharing this video with someone who might be carrying silent financial pressure without knowing why. Sometimes understanding alone can ease stress more effectively than advice, judgment, or unrealistic motivation. If calm, honest discussions about money help you feel grounded, gently tap like to support this channel. Leave a comment sharing what part of this conversation resonated most with your experience or surprised you. Reading your perspectives helps others realize they are not alone in these financial feelings. If you value realistic financial thinking without hype, fear, or shame, consider subscribing for future conversations. This channel exists to explore money as a human system, not just a mathematical problem. We talk about choices, trade-offs, and emotional realities most people face but rarely discuss openly. Financial peace is not about perfection, but about designing life with room to breathe and recover. You deserve systems that support your humanity, not ones that demand constant performance to survive. Thank you for spending this time reflecting thoughtfully on money, work, and what security truly means. Wherever you are watching from, I hope this perspective helps you feel a little less alone today. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember that financial clarity is a form of kindness.